Okay, one small step at a time. On the next video, do the 2 great tricks that work great together. And I should throw in there the .screenrc file because that's part of the 2 tricks. Don't get too ambitious on this video. Just take one chisel strike. But do the setup work that is called for. So the setup work was getting to this point in another video of mine I have called 2 great Linux tricks that work great together. One of them being while true date, do sleep 1 done. That is a long-running service. Well, it's not a service until you're running it in a certain context, but that is a long-running script. And we want to create one of those on the Linux in the home cloud. This is my Linux in the home cloud. I should come up with better nicknames and such for this, but that you can see on startup something that's referred to in the bash profile is not happening here, and there's in fact another one in there that I know is not happening correct, but we will just take care of the first with a, I guess, vim ~bash_profile. And let's see, what was that? It was something about transfer. So it's this one that isn't working. We don't need that. All right, so we comment that out. This display of Linux graphics stuff is never going to be something on that remote server. The configuration for a Jupyter location is not something we need, but this one is being referred to and is not in location. So we'll get back to that soon. But for now, that's enough of an edit to the bash profile on the LXD Linux container running on my QNAP NAS. What will we do? What are we trying to do? Oh yes, we're trying to create a little script there. So we're in a repos directory. Let's mkdir, and we will call it heartbeat or pulse. Pulse is shorter than heartbeat, easier to remember. So then we will cd into pulse. Normally, I would git init and put some python.py file in there, but for now, we're going to just vim pulse.sh, a script file, a Unix script file. It's not going to be very complicated. The extent of this script file is going to be while true. I'll use my 4-space convention. While true, date. And I think it's else something. No. While true date, do sleep 1 done. Do. I don't like that huge indent. Sleep 1 done. Let's make that every 2 seconds, all right? So, while true print date, okay, and that would be just sh from this location /pulse. Here is the date. Every 2 seconds, the date is being printed out. So there's going to be a 2-second difference between this and this and this and this. So you can quickly look down and see how accurate it is drift-wise by making sure they're all even. There's an advantage to doing every 2 seconds instead of every 1 second. You get to practice your pattern recognition a little bit. That is a long-running script you see. But if I were to close out of this terminal and then go back in, it's gone. That long-running script is no longer running. You can do certain things like ps-ax to take a look at what's actually running on your machine. And you'll see that that thing we named pulse.sh is not amongst them. So what does that mean? What that means is that when you do little tricks like, oh, you got to cd into that directory for that to work, cd pulse. When you do little tricks like this, and you want them to continue to run in the background, you have to tend to the way in which it's going to run in the background. Now, I'll tell you, we're moving towards something called Linux services, or daemons if you prefer. But I am not going to go directly to daemons. I am going to go next to the other part of the trick that runs great together. Now, you will recall, I'm Control-C'ing out of this running of that script, you will recall there is a program called Screen. And it's not actually on the machine now. So I believe this is because it's started from a very stripped down LXD launched canonical Ubuntu image. Very stripped down. It's the equivalent of an Amazon AMI instance on their Elastic Computing Cloud. They don't include very much. And so amazingly, amongst what they don't include is the GNU Screen program. Now, I believe in my recollection, I've done this once before, where I had to double check apt install Screen, because Screen's such a common thing. It could be something else. So apt install GNU Screen, whatever the command is, will be quickly revealed by Googling how to install GNU Screen. See if we don't even have to drill down. Probably apt install Screen. Apt install Screen. Okay, they all concur. So we will go back to here, and we will apt, it's going to have to be sudo apt install Screen. Now, the only reason I'm not doing a sudo apt update first is because I have updated these systems very recently, or more accurately, I've created these systems recently, and they have not needed updating. But with this sudo apt install Screen, we now have the equivalent of a terminal server. It serves terminals, sessions, terminal sessions. It's like a separate login to the computer, separate from your own login session. The server maintains all the details. So we'll do a clear, and we'll do Screen, okay, just like that, except I'm going to do space -ls, list all the screens that are running. No sockets found. So I'm going to go Screen hyphen uppercase R for reattach, but create if it doesn't exist yet, foo. Now you see that new screen appear there for a second. It's going to go away. And there's very little way to tell that you're in a screen. You can once again do Screen -ls, and it'll tell you that a session for Screen is actually there called foo, and that it is in fact attached. So you should just infer that that is what you're looking at. But it's quite possible that it remains attached even though you've disconnected. And sometimes you don't know whether you're inside a screen session or not, because all visual feedback has been removed in that regard. You can exit, and it exits you out of that screen session back out to where you were, and also gets rid of that screen session. So if you were to once again Screen -ls, no screens are found because your exit ended the terminal session. All right, so what we need to do next is something that I sort of set the stage for. If we cd back up to home and we do an ls-la, you'll see various invisible files here that are controlling the behavior of what's going on, one of the important ones being .bash profile. Now, if I vim.bash profile, you will once again see that line I referred to before, where we are calling our home location the place where the screen configuration should be found. So if I put a .screen.rc in there, it will be used. You see there is not a .screen.rc. There is a .screen, just not a .screen.rc, which is like a .bash.rc, and it's just some configuration. And we need to create one. So not so much create one as use the one that I had referred to in this part of my script. So I actually have it right here. Copy. I guess from also within the browser, new tab, paste, select all, copy, vim.screen.rc, insert, paste, escape, :WQ. Now if I exit out completely, boom, and go back in, I should be able to screen, create new, foo, enter. And instead of that new screen, which disappears and leaves behind no visual clue that you're in a screen terminal session, it now does. An index of which terminal, what user you are, various other things that are shown here, including the time. So now, if I were to CD into Pulse, this is just nuts, right? If you're not a regular user of the screen program to leave long-running scripts around, then you're not living. You're certainly not living the promise of a powerful Unix-like command line comfort. If you're comfortable in a Unix-like command line environment, you should be able to do stuff like this, using sh for executing a shell in a location relative from where I am, the program Pulse, which, as you'll recall, just prints the date every 2 seconds. All right, every 2 seconds printing the date. Bam, what did you do? You disconnected, you lost it, you terminated it like before, right? Not so fast. We go back in. We now do our screen-ls. Oh, look, there's a screen named foo. Let's screen reattach to foo. There's my script, right where it left off. Long-running script. Thank you very much. These are all magic tricks, ladies and gentlemen. This one being amongst the first and most important you will learn once you got your tooling down. So all these videos leading up to this is really just getting down the tooling. Now I've got a Linux container. Ho, ho, ho. You can do a lot with Linux containers. With LXD Linux containers, they call it next generation, but all it means is that instead of having to jump through the hoops, and there are a lot of composited hoops, they're not merely hoops, ladies and gentlemen, but they are highly composited loops of Docker. Docker has you jump through loops. LXD really has very few loops. So anyway, what can I tell you about this? This is just one of those, logged in terminal sessions here that you don't have to worry about accidentally closing and getting rid of the session, because every time you reconnect to that machine, you can use the screen program, the screen API, to see what screens are running and to reattach to the screen of your choosing. Like so. So, very important. This is even before any of the talk of systemd Linux daemons or any of that stuff. You just need to know how, or even Python running .py files. This is more fundamental. This is, as far as fundamentals go, one of the first interesting things you can build out of the building blocks of all the tooling that we've shown you so far. there's very little here that's not part of a standard system. And if it's not part of the standard system, it's one very easy repo apt install away. GNU Screen is an example. But in GNU Screen's defense, Git was also not included. So these are really stripped down Linux images we're starting with from Ubuntu, which is absolutely fine. You want small surface area. You want a small footprint as we start. So you could actually Control-C here, and a Control-C is very different because a Control-C just breaks you out of that running script. Let me see if another Control-C, yeah, it just breaks you out of the running script, but you're still logged into that session. That session stays there. If you were to close this, the only way to get rid of that actual session is to exit. And before I do I show you here? Let's see. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. But I could be logged into this machine from many different terminals, different tabs, and use Screen on any of those terminals to take over that session, to knock the other person out, forcibly detach them, attach to it yourself, and that's the way Screen works. If you type exit, you exit out of the actual Screen session. And again, a Screen ls will show you no screens running. So there you have it. This is an important video. And if you need a refresher on what's going on here, the 2 great tricks that work great together is something that I'll link in, I guess, in the description or whatever. And that shows you in another video me doing the same trick in a different context, I think on local Linux container. And the place where I'm copying a few of my commands from is based on going to mikelev.in/ux, which brings you to the .bat file of this install script. Now, this is the first half of the install script, so if you want to see second phase stuff and like borrow from me for doing your configuration, which is what I do with myself, I'm like, how do I do this? How do I do that? I'll often go into here and just change the .bat into .sh, the second half of the install, and then find what I need, like how to get Python 10.8, what is it? Yeah, 3.10.8 installed in a modern Ubuntu. Some would say just don't use Ubuntu, use something with a up-to-date Python that ships out of the box. But I'm staying fairly close to the well-traveled road, the road more traveled. And so that often means using Ubuntu as my container Linux repo version. So there you have it. That covers a lot of what I did here. And 2 great tricks that work great together, now being used in order to create a long-running script on a Screen session. You can't reattach to it like that because it doesn't exist. Using uppercase R, suddenly it now does exist, and you're in it. And from in it, cd into pulse. I'll remind you, vim pulse.sh, the script we're running, is only just this big. Look at how small that script is. While true date to sleep 2 done, right? And that is the beginning of kind of a proto-service, simply by being in a GNU Screen session and calling it. There. And by doing that, this session that's running is in a terminal server on the server, on the Linux container over there, and it'll just keep running even if we X out of it, because when you reconnect, the same Screen program that let you create that session in the first place lets you list the running sessions and reattach to the ones you want. And there you have it, right? What more is there? A successful video. Thanks for joining me to teach you how to make a Linux daemon service real soon. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and all the rest of that stuff.